Good morning, children. So, we'll continue with the same lesson, the poem Childhood by Marcus Nathan. Today, we will do the poetic devices from the poem Childhood. Rationalism. Rationalism, the poet rationalizes that it would have gone when he was 11. What would have gone? His childhood would have gone when he found out that hell and heaven could not be found in geography. And when does the poet become rational in his outlook, in his thinking? When he steps into or is about to step into adulthood. Yes, children. Then he becomes a rational. It is very common with the adults, right? So, at that time, he realized there is no such thing as hell and heaven in geography, and that is when he realized that he is adult now. Next is hypocrisy. Now, who are hypocrites in this poem? The adults. Why? Because they do not practice what they preach. They preach about love, about kindness, about all such things. But do they themselves practice that? No. So the poet understands that the world is full of hypocrites. That is what is the meaning of hypocrisy. So when he found out that the adults preached one but practiced another, he realized world is full of what? Hypocrites. That means people are hypocrites. They indulge in hypocrisy. They preached love but were not so lovable. Next, individuality. It is there in which stanza, children? Yes, in third stanza. He now understood he means the poet. He now understood that his individuality, he understood his individuality, his own individuality, that he can make his own decisions. Why so? Because he's an adult now and is the master of his own decisions. Now he need not be now influenced by others' decisions. Now what happens when one is a small child? One is not able to make his own decisions. One has to depend on others' decisions. Why? Because small children are innocent. They cannot decide things. They cannot differentiate, distinguish between what is good for them and what is bad for them. But once when you step into adulthood, that is, you become an adult, you are able to make your own decisions. So the same thing happens with the poet here in this poem. Now, how is the rhyme scheme of this poem? The poet does not follow any particular rhyme scheme. Now, when a particular rhyme scheme is not followed, you know what is it called? It is called irregular rhyme scheme. In the first stanza alone, it has A, B, B, C, C, D. Otherwise, it has a irregular rhyme scheme. Now, what is that irregular rhyme scheme? When you do not follow a particular rhyme scheme, it is called irregular rhyme scheme. So, in this poem, except here in the first stanza, that A, B, B, C, C, D is followed. Otherwise, throughout it is irregular. What is irregular? The rhyme scheme is irregular. Repetition, refrain, is a group of verse or a phrase which gets repeated throughout the poem. Here, when did my childhood go? Was that the day? Where did my childhood go? Is repeated throughout. So, what is it? It is repetition. Yes. Antithesis. Next is antithesis. It is a rhetorical device in which two opposite ideas are put together. That is contrasting ideas. Okay. Now, the two contrasting colors are black and white. Like that, two contrasting ideas are put together in one sentence, in a sentence, to achieve a contrasting effect. Here, hell and heaven. See, hell and heaven. Hell is supposed to be so bad. It is believed, it is a belief of the people that who indulge in all the wrong deeds, the bad deeds, after death, where do they go? They go to hell. And all the good people who indulge in all the good deeds, where do they go after death? They go to heaven. So here there's a contrast between extremely bad and extremely good. So that is the contrasting effect. Yes, that is why it is antithesis. Next, we move on to alliteration. This is very common. You have come across earlier also in your lower classes in 9th, 10th, 8th. My mind, whichever way, that, they, the, time. See, that M is repeated. The sound M is repeated. Yes, whichever way the sound, that W is repeated. So, therefore, it is alliteration. Inversion. What is inversion? When we reverse or invert, ulta karna jisko bolte in Hindi, yeah? When we reverse or invert the normal word order of a structure, most commonly the subject verb word order is known as inversion here. Here, to use whichever way, choose. So that is inversion. So now we move on to the short answer type questions. You get such types for 3 marks, and always you have it in your question paper. And 3 questions are compulsory there. Yes. So the first one, the short answer type. How does the poem expose man and present him in true colors? Childhood symbolizes what? Innocence, purity, softness and love. Small children are so innocent. They're full of love. They're soft. You will never find any sort of rudeness, any sort of what? Harshness in them. They're so soft, so innocent. As a child grows, these qualities start receding. What is the meaning of receding? Becoming lesser and lesser and lesser. Man becomes impure, cunning, shrewd and hypocrite. Grown-ups become blatant liars. They lie. They talk of love but practice hatred. They preach brotherhood of mankind but perpetuate hatred and killing. Simplicity and honesty evaporate into thin air. It is not seen at all. When one becomes an adult, what happens? One loses the simplicity, the honesty. One starts lying. One becomes so harsh, cunning, shrewd, and of course, hypocrite. The moment man crosses the threshold of innocent childhood, what happens? You lose that innocence, that goodness. What is the poet feeling towards the childhood? The poet regards childhood as a period of heavenly innocence. All children are said to be innocent. A child sincerely feels that there is a God above. He's free from all earthly evils and he's also free from all worries. He believes that there is really a heaven and hell. And small children, they talk like that. You might have heard them also. He's truly religious in his soul. A child knows no hypocrisy. He practices only love. He always means what he says, and even he does not lie also. There is no difference between his thoughts and actions. See, whatever he thinks, he does that. Whatever he does, he thinks that. There's an interrelation between his thinking and his actions. A child is free from any sense of ego. He does not think himself to be different from or superior to others. He doesn't have that feeling of superiority. In short, childhood is a state of heavenly innocence and purity of heart. What, according to the poem, is involved in the process of growing up? As a person grows up, he becomes a rationalist, an egoist, and a hypocrite. He accepts nothing that is not logical. That is, he becomes more rational in his outlook. He loses faith in God. He does not believe in hell or heaven. he becomes very conscious of his own self. He wants to follow his own desires, thoughts, and ideas. He does whatever he wishes to do. He becomes an egoist. He talks of love, but does he preach love? No, he does not preach. But is not so loving in his actions. He becomes rather shrewd, harsh, and all that. In short, he loses his innocence of his childhood. So this is a very interesting poem, and very true. See, this is what you observe. Children are so innocent. Small children, see, they're so loving, they're so affectionate. But when the same children grow up, are they innocent as they were when they were small children? No. Because they mix up with such kinds of people, they become hypocrites, rudeness comes into them. So these are some of the changes which is very common in the adults as per the poet. So children, note down these questions and answers in your notebook and go through the poem once again. Let me tell you something. By the way, this is very favorite with the examiners. The examiners are so very fond of this poem, and in every exam you'll find a question from this particular poem. So please go through it once again. Note down the questions, answers. Go through all the questions and answers. Now after a few days again you have to write some other exam, maybe half yearly or whatever. Yes children, so please read, revise all the lessons that are taught to you. That's all for this session. Thank you. Goodbye.